What's going on, Moon Gang? The interview you're about to listen to is with Kevin Paffrath, better known as Meet Kevin. Now, throughout the interview, we talked about quite a bit. We talked about government corruption, what's going on in California. We talked about inflation, his ideas on the best way to play the next market cycle. We talked about his AMC position and what that might become in the future. He does have some options at play currently, but most importantly, we talked about what in the world is going on with his hair. I hope that you enjoy. What's going on, Kevin? Very, very excited to be able to speak with you. And I know Ape Nation are very excited to what we're about to get into. First of all, thank you so much for your time. I've been doing some research on you. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I've been tracking you on YouTube for a while. And then when I was doing a deep dive, you seem to be an entrepreneur through and through. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it started off with a real estate empire that turned into a very dominant YouTube. And now most recently, it's a stock portfolio that I would argue is going to make a grown man cry. So with all of that being said, could you tell us a little bit about what's going on with your hair?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's an incredible intro. Thank you for that. So the hair is really like a protest because I spent this 3 or 4 months this summer running a gubernatorial campaign in California. And every interview I had, every conversation, every newspaper, I always felt like every little thing I said, they were just looking. They were just looking for something to go, you screwed up. And so the green hair is like a protest to all that bullshit out there, man. Like, I'm so tired of being perfect all the time. Like, no, take the suit off and F that. Politics sucks.
I like it. With that, how long is it going to be there for? Like, how long does that dye last?
Whenever it grows out.
Oh, man. Jeez. Could you tell us a little bit more about the gubernatorial run, like what you learned? Because I'm sure it had to be eye-opening in the sense of potentially learning a little bit more about politics being a bit more dirty or messed up than maybe any of us even knew.
Yeah, it's very dirty, way more than I even knew. I think the best example I could give you is after the election, I had some top reporters reach out from off the record from different news agencies that are very popular in California. The number 1 and the number 3 stations in certain areas. I don't want to give away what areas, but really big stations. Reporters reached out. One of them actually met me for coffee because they just want to be totally off the record. And they said I could talk about this, just can't identify who they are. So it's not like you're giving away secrets. They want the world to know this. And they said they're so frustrated because they would put together reports on the election, and they would have somewhere from the corporate level, somebody come in and edit their reports and their transcripts or whatever they're supposed to read. And then they were told, do not change it back. Even if you don't agree with it, read it the way it is. And so One of the examples they gave was they would read things on the air. There is no prominent Democrat running against the Democratic governor in California. And meanwhile, here I am. I'm a registered Democrat. I was registered as a Democrat since 18. I know 50% of people are like, he's a Democrat. Like, I consider myself so in the middle. I hate the label. And honestly, I've gotten very pissed off with the Democratic Party lately. I hate it all. But with that, they would run those labels like there's no prominent Democrat running. Meanwhile, in some polls, I was the top replacement to replace the governor, and they refused to mention me. And so the reporters were saying, Kevin, that was all by design. Gavin Newsom gets them views. Gavin Newsom and them have a thing together. We throw softball questions at Gavin Newsom, the governor, because if we ever ask him hard questions, we'll get a phone call the next day going, hey, we're not doing interviews with you anymore. Then our views go down because we don't get the interview. So we have to cater to the existing politician with softball questions because he's most likely to stay in and he's going to keep getting us views, and we get paid based off views, is what the reporters would tell me. So they would get blatantly censored on their stories. For example, one very briefly was a reporter wanted to report on the fact that U-Haul trucks were unavailable at certain stations in California because everybody's taking them one way out of California and not bringing them back. Yeah. And the manager, the desk manager for this news station said, we're not covering that. You're not running that story. because it makes California look bad during an election cycle. And it's just like, that censorship is real. And so if there's anything that really blew my mind, it's that the game's pretty well rigged. Initially when I got in, I announced my candidacy, my Facebook post announcing my candidacy, my Instagram post got deleted. I thought, okay, maybe benefit of that, maybe it's a fluke. Maybe it's a fluke that I meet all the requirements to get verified on Twitter and I don't get verified on Twitter. Maybe it's a fluke that CNN blatantly lied about our campaign and we had to have an attorney send them a cease and desist letter because they were censoring us. Maybe it's all a fluke. But after the election, when I hear these things from insiders, I'm like, no, it's rigged.
Yeah. I mean, even that word alone, my audience right now, their ears are perking up because that's exactly the crusade that we've been on. And it's a little bit different, but it's disheartening in the general sense that it's one of those things that you assume, whether it's from books, Hollywood, just whatever, our general feeling of how it seems like we're lied to by media time and time again. But it's completely different to kind of get inside of it. So in my own experience with the market right now, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's messed up. But now day over day, that me commenting on financial happenings and media has become literally just vital to my life. And it's what I do. Just these stories all day. Corporate corruption, market manipulation, insider trading. I'm not sure if you were paying attention to NVIDIA, but a new all-time high. Pelosi is raking in money on those trades. Now, I'm a fan of NVIDIA. I have no issue with it, but it's that same exact pattern of time and time again. The people who are on that inside crowd with money, power, influence, they are making a killing. And if there's anything at all that threatens that status quo, like they just try to go scorched earth on it and they completely erase it. That U-Haul story is absolutely insane about that. So could you give us a little idea? I'm on the opposite coast of you. What's going on in California right now? I'm reading some reports of increased homelessness. I'm reading things that gasoline, I think, is the highest it's been since 2012. And just in general, I know America's facing inflation. I know there's supply chain issues, especially the LA, Long Beach ports out there. Give us a little insight to California right now.
Totally. Well, geez, first, I totally echo your sentiments on how frustrating it is, especially in the market. It's very similar to politics. Like you said, the insider trading, it's almost all the same crowd, like you say. But California, look, I live in Ventura, California. So I feel fortunate that I'm kind of in this space between Santa Barbara and LA, where we're fortunate in this small kind of like surfer town. It's 110,000 folks. And we don't have as much homelessness. But as soon as you go to LA, it's horrible. I mean, it's tent city after tent city. It's impossible to get permits out here. You're waiting 8 to 12 months to get permits on basic things like moving a non-bearing wall, putting in a window. They will shut your job site down on real estate renovations for 6 to 12 months. I know because I experience it. People are quitting the city staff. They don't pay the city staff enough money, so we can't get anything processed, so we can't build. So housing prices are through the roof. We can't get new developments done because nobody wants new developments in their backyard. The government thinks, oh, well, like here's just an example. You put the politics in, how stupid they are. The government, our California legislature said, you know what, let's pass a bill that lets us turn single family lots into 10 units if people want. So they can apply to pull permits and tear down a single family and put 10 units there. Well, the state says that, and all the media organizations that support them out here, the liberal media, they're like, oh, this is so great. We're going to be able to have so much more housing, denser housing where we need it. A lot of people don't like that, by the way. They like single family homes, but whatever. Turns out in the bill itself, they actually have a thing that says you can put 10 on a lot if your city passes a bill allowing that. So it's kind of like, here's a law if your city passes a new law. It's totally moronic. Like the government doesn't know what the hell they're doing out here. They're total idiots. I don't know if they're bought out, they're corrupt, they're just morons or stupid or what it is. It's a very, very broken system. I had my taste of it and it's very disgusting. I don't like it. I mean, it's the same thing as like, listen to this one here. This tells you everything. Governor Newsom signed this bill. I think it was SB 7 or 6. I can't remember what it was. It doesn't matter. But it was, he signed it on his Google campus. It was a housing bill. It was supposed to make housing more efficient and housing development more efficient, to streamline some of the processes, to finally make things faster. So I read the bill, I pull up the bill, and it says, any project worth over $10 million can apply to have the development process sped up. So immediately I'm thinking to myself, okay, great. So only rich developers are going to benefit from this bill. But the only way they can actually benefit from that sped up process is if they apply through the governor's office. So it's not through your local office. No. If you're rich, come to the governor's office and we'll help you out. We'll get you sped up. Like, the corruption is literally written into law. You can't make this stuff up.
And it's that stuff that if you don't laugh at it, I feel like you'd end up crying, because most of the time they try to argue. They're like, why is the general populace so mad? Like, what's going on? Like, they're in a certain sense, like, looking down in dazed and confused from their ivory tower. Like, we don't even get what's wrong right now. And it's like, that just shows how disconnected they are. And it's that part that, especially in my little realm of the market, it's this. They have the fancy pedigree on their wall. They know what's right. You can't say anything. We know what's right. You're wrong. Shut up. Sit down. And it's like, if you just bring up a legitimate thing, obviously you're very plugged into the politics of California, real estate, the markets. It's the same thing time and time again, where it's just like, no, if you're this average person, the system is obviously tilted. You use the word rig. I would definitely echo that once again. And my personal amazement is they're just like, we don't even get why you're mad. Like, why would you be mad? And it's just like, it's almost childish, and it's more offensive to a certain point that you're like, seriously? Like, you don't get why we're mad right now? And I think that's the general discontent that so many people have.
Bingo. You've nailed it. And I mean, look, people just are so frustrated in California, and it makes sense because you pay some of the highest taxes in the state. Yet, we're ranked 40th in schools out here. Yet we're with New York, we're the top 2 income tax states of the country. We are the biggest state of the country. We're the 5th largest economy of the world. Like, if you took California and sliced it out, we're the 5th largest economy of the world. We should be focusing on how to beat Germany, who's the 4th largest economy. But instead, we're in the bottom 20% of schools, and we can't get homeless people off the street. Dude, the governor says we have a gun violence epidemic, and more people die to homelessness on our streets than people die to guns in California. It's so broken. You touch anything, man. Water, fires, it's all broken. The governor says, we're going to do all this fire prevention. The guy overstated how much fire prevention they were going to do by 680%. It took a left-leaning organization, NPR, to expose them. And then after they get exposed by NPR, these emails leaked. I think it was through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. There were emails that were exchanged. Hey, we should really change the website about our original promise.
Wow. Not a day passes that you don't get insane developments like that. One of the hot ones right now that over the past, couple days is inflation and supply chain issues. And I was reading some absurd uptick in the amount of companies in their earnings reports that are saying supply chain issues, inflation, yada, yada. Right now, directly related to inflation is the Federal Reserve. And it sounds like there's a chance we might be getting a new chairwoman, should really say. What are your thoughts on that scenario? Do you think we are going to have a new one? Do you think they're really different at all? I mean, both are pretty dovish. Do you think it's good, bad? Do you think we're going to even see a change?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So the Wall Street Journal's editorial board did a piece on this today. I actually have it right here, and it just shows you how extreme it's gotten, because look at this. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board goes and says here, the Fed's professed inflation target is 2%, but the CPI rose 6.2% in October. By any measure, this is a historic failure, and that Powell's credibility has been damaged with his persistent refrain that this is transitory, which has clearly been a bust. And they just railed on Powell, and they're basically saying if we get Brainard, the other tentative option right now, Biden's basically just going to be accepting all of this inflation because she's expected to do exactly the same thing as Powell. She's just as much of a dove as Powell. Both of them are on the same boat. Inflation is transitory. It's going away. Now, in the last Fed meeting, they mentioned that, hey, there's been some confusion with how we're communicating. We don't mean transitory to be temporary. We mean we're in a transition. So this is where, like, I'm like 70-30, maybe 75-25. I believe that at some point in the future, I don't know how long, maybe next summer, maybe the end of next year, maybe 2023, inflation will start ticking down. It won't be gone. It's going to take a while for inflation to go away. But at some point, it's going to start ticking down. I believe that. But in between now and then, there's going to be a lot of inflation. Prices are going to go up like crazy, and they already are. We see that. So I'm trying to balance my portfolio where I have exposure to both real estate and stocks, because I see real estate as my inflation hedge. So if the Fed's totally wrong, which probably about 50-60% of people think the Fed's totally wrong, they're dumb, like we're going into hyperinflation, right? Mm-hmm. We're going back to the 1970s. If that's the case, real estate is going to do amazing because rents skyrocket. Real estate prices will be hurt in the short term because rates go up, real estate prices go down. So do not try to speculate on real estate prices because they'll go down with inflation. Mm-hmm. But rents will go up to such levels and then prices catch up, but now to higher levels because prices gone up. So inflation is actually really good for real estate. It's easier for you to pay your debt off because debt is fixed. 30-year fixed rate mortgage stays the same. You don't get margin called on your debt. So that's my hedge. I got about 42% of my portfolio in real estate. That's sort of, I call that my inflation hedge. It's my long hedge. I don't trade it. I don't sell real estate. It's too expensive. So I don't really care what prices do in the short term. Stocks, on the other hand, I'm going long on technology because I believe that tech companies will figure out how to navigate these issues, will honestly become the most efficient companies we've ever seen. Commodity prices are on a 200-year downtrend. And so input costs will go down at some point in the future, whether that's in a year or in 5 years, at some point they'll go down. And companies don't like pain. Companies figure out how to become very efficient. Their employees become more efficient. Their machines become more efficient. Their supply chains become more efficient. The problems we're facing now are really just, in my opinion, problems that are the perfect tools for companies to use to finally force efficiency and margin improvement, to where I think 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're going to look back and go, oh my gosh, we created the most efficient companies the world has ever seen. We had a pandemic where companies were able to fire tens of thousands of workers. Then they only hire back the efficient ones. They don't hire back the bad ones, right? It's like the perfect excuse to fire people, right? And that, not a diss to anyone who didn't get rehired. I'm just saying that's, from an investor point of view, it's actually great. Terrible for people who got laid off. And then for an efficiency point of view, once we get through these supply chain issues, these companies are going to be human efficient and machine and supply chain efficient. You can't bet against these companies, the technology companies, the Tesla, the Enphase, or even the consumer discretionaries, the online ones like Etsy. You can't bet against these companies. So I'm long on those, long bullish. Yeah, I'll trade in the meantime. But we're going to continue to have this pain in the next 12 months. This is going to be the big hot topic for the next 12 months.
So do you consider those particular technical, tech-based plays to be an actual inflation hedge? Because I think there's a lot of people watching right now who are like, hey, I'm not in the financial situation to really get involved in real estate at this moment in time. Yeah. So what would be your suggestion for maybe someone who has a quote unquote smaller account to try to battle inflation if they agree that it's a bit more than transitory? And before we get into that, I absolutely loved how mid-conference he was changing the definition of transitory. He even said, he's like, I don't know why people are having such an issue with this, but I kind of meant it this way. And his definition became, as long as it's not permanently forever, it's transitory. I was like, dude, you can't do that mid-conference. Come on.
Also true. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw a reference somewhere where somebody's like, the Bible refers to our lives as transitory. So maybe they just mean transitory for our entire life.
Could be.
So, but okay, yeah. So smaller portfolio hedging against inflation. Well, I definitely have to always start with, if your net worth is under $500,000 to $1 million, figure out how to fix your financial situation so you can qualify for real estate. There's no reason you should be able to qualify for real estate. If you can't qualify for real estate, it either means you have too much debt, in which case you should be getting out of that debt, that consumer debt, credit card debt, car debt, right? Monthly payment debt, get out of that. And number two, you should be figuring out how to increase your income. That can mean figuring out how to provide more value to society. So learn how to do photography, videography, get a real estate license, coding, become a lender, become a CPA, you could get a Series 65 license very easily and go work for a money manager in New York. I had somebody come up to me. They're like, Kevin, I was working minimum wage, and 3 years ago, you inspired me to try to learn something. So I ended up learning business analysis. I don't remember the exact course she took, but she walked up to me at the New York Stock Exchange, outside the New York Stock Exchange, and thanked me. And now she works at Deutsche Bank. She makes like $129,000 a year. It's like, wow. That's amazing. It's New York, so 129 is not, it's obviously it doesn't go as far as it might somewhere else, but still, that's way better than a smaller income. And they could go buy a house in Brooklyn or whatever, which I think they were buying a duplex in Brooklyn or something like that. Anyway, point is, number one to me is figure out how to get into real estate, because it's a great way to build your wealth in a large way with, in my opinion, the least amount of risk. If I were going to try to hedge for inflation, it's tough. Tech stocks, I don't think, are going to do great if inflation stays high in the short term. The yields will go up, future cash flows get discounted. It should be bad for tech companies if inflation sticks around. So you have two choices. You can take the long play and go, that's okay, I'll just keep building my portfolio. I don't need this money for 10, 20 years. I'll build my portfolio potentially at lower prices. Right now, we're pretty crazy at prices. I think Enphase, Etsy, Tesla, I think these prices are very, very high right now. So I've increased my cash position a little bit, hoping that we'll see a dip here sometime soon. We talk more about that. But in terms of other inflation plays in the stock market, probably not the best to advise on that, just because I don't really get into some of like the industrial plays with the higher cash flows now, because they have lower growth. I don't care so much about them. You could look at manufacturers like one that I really like that I think has a great valuation is Embraer. They manufacture jet planes. And business jets are just taking off. Like, everybody wants business jets now. There's this company called NetJets that does private jet services owned by Berkshire Hathaway. They had to stop selling hours that people can buy. So like, they can't take any new customers. And they've had a freeze since the summer to April of next year. That's like a 10-month freeze on new customers because there's so much private jet demand. And they're just like, please get us more planes. So that could be an interesting space. Industrials with these lower valuations that have good growth, but also have potentially a tech element to them, where Embraer is trying to get into eVTOLs with a spin-off that's under their umbrella still. And if they do end up spinning off, that's going to be profits for Embraer as well, as if they sell that business off or whatever. So I think there are some plays like that. Some people say the John Deere's, the Caterpillars. I just don't know enough about these. I don't actually have any money in Embraer because I'm very nervous about, like, they can't just tomorrow go, let's open a new factory. You see how long it takes for Tesla to add a factory in Germany. I mean, it's a pain in the ass. So I can only imagine a Brazilian company where they have even higher inflation. Embraer's Brazilian. I don't know. So, real estate or just suck it up and stick it through in the tech.
Well, what if someone's listening right now and they're like, hey, I have some money. Let's use your example of below 500,000, and they are worried about it. And what if they have that money, whatever it is? What if someone comes up to them? What are your thoughts on like a gold ETF or even crypto? Let's just say, for an example, someone has $100,000. Do you think it's smarter for them to start learning about real estate, do something in that, or just, at this point, pretty much buy like, say, 2 BTC? Would you like balance it out? Or what's your thought on gold as a hedge, or digital gold, aka Bitcoin, or we could even talk about something like Ethereum?
Yeah, gold's not fun for me. I don't like gold. I think if I were going to go into gold, I'd much rather go into like Ethereum or Bitcoin, either of those. I'd probably stay away from the alt madness. I think that's very roulette speculative. Not to say that there aren't good ones like Cardano or Solana. There's some really great ones. But I would probably try to limit my exposure to those, especially if I had a portfolio and I wanted to be a little bit more conservative. Obviously, hashtag not financial advice. But if I was going to go for some form of like gold, essentially, like you're saying, probably a balance between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe throw in like a Cardano or Solana in there, and then have like a diversified portfolio. Maybe do all four of them, right? Okay. Maybe 30-30, 20-20, something like that, right? Another thing that people can do is they can go into a basket of index funds. So, for example, you could go on M1 Finance and do 20% S&P 500, 20% NASDAQ, Russell, and Dow, or 25% for each of them, whatever. That's nice, because if we have a market crash, a market crash is going to be like a 7% sell-off on those indices, and we're all going to be freaking out of a market crash because tech stocks are going to be down 40%. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a great way to kind of break the glass and then go from that kind of balance of an index fund pie into individual stocks. That's an option. I would still prefer getting into real estate. I don't want to beat that so much, but and the type of real estate that you should get into, and this maybe I'll just briefly explain why I keep bringing that up, is I believe you can buy a home that is in, let's say, a $400,000 neighborhood for $300,000 that needs paint, carpet, it's got some mildew, maybe a little bit of a roof leak or whatever. And you can usually, after you spend money on the fix up, you could usually increase your net worth between $60,000 to $120,000 by not selling. And that's because what you're doing is you're solving a problem that a lot of buyers don't want to solve. They don't want to deal with, oh, I got to do a roof, or I got to paint, or I got to do carpet, or it's stinky, or it's moldy, or it's gross, or there's fresh. A lot of these things are very inexpensive to deal with, especially if you can put your own blood, sweat, and tears in. Mm-hmm. You can do your own painting. Come on, man. You can save so much freaking money. So to me, that is a way for you to explode your net worth quickly. You know, our first house we bought for $305,000. We put down collectively $18,000. We borrowed the money from the bank to fix up the property, about $50,000. And that money within a year was worth somewhere around $125,000 after all the fix up and everything. Like, our net worth ballooned from $18K collectively to $125,000, $150,000. And we couldn't have gotten that balloon if it weren't for the fact that we were able to buy a fixer upper for 3.5% down. You know?
Yeah. I mean, but even with that, I feel so much is changing with technology right now. And for example, I'm sure you've read that story of someone 400 plus days ago bought $8,000 worth of sheep, and now the wallet's worth like 5.6 billion.
Yes.
Do you feel like at a certain point, things, that fundamental view, because of technology and how widespread it is, because everyone has all the apps on their phone, and like, it feels like things are just getting so much faster and the opportunities are so much more vast, so much more volatile. Do you think how, I guess, we view of classic fundamental things? Because before, if you were a broker, you got in this index fund, and now people are just saying, hey, I want to buy AMC and GME on Robinhood because I can, and I hear it's going to make, I guess, hedge funds have a bad day. Or even with this real estate, these opportunities. I mean, I've run into people that the money they're making off of Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, Cardano, all of those, to them, it's like, well, all I had to do was hit buy on my phone, and then I forgot about it, and I came back a couple months later, and I didn't have to go through the hassle of even learning about real estate or things like that. Do you think that that's like a new trend, or do you think this is a fad, or do you think because of technology that, like, who knows, like the world of investing and, let's say, generating wealth, do you think it's kind of changing for like a permanent nature?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we've even seen this year things get faster and faster. Like, GameStop at the beginning of the year, even Kohrs at the beginning of the year, these had momentum for a while. I mean, GME was moving for a couple months, and that's a while in the momentum game, right? And then it even held on quite a while to a lot of its value. It's not $40 anymore, right? It's held on to a lot of its value because you get a lot of hodlers. Similar with AMC, you had like a good run for AMC of a lot of enthusiasm, and you still have a lot of people hodling. I still hodl my shares, and that's great for GME and AMC. But what's transitioned this latter half of the year that I've noticed is the momentum plays are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Like the Donald Trump SPAC was hot for like 3 days and then it's dead. The Rivian thing was hot for like 4 days and now it's on that cool down phase, right? Metamaterials, Newegg was hot for like a day and then it evaporated, right? These opportunities, these momentum movements are going up and coming down so quickly. You're right. Things are getting way faster. And on the other hand, it also puts to shame some fundamental analysis because you could do some great fundamental analysis, but if the stock isn't sexy, it doesn't move.
Very true.
It's very sad. Like there are some great companies out there, but here's a theory I have. I have a theory that we are doing something I call concentrating wealth. Or concentrating into stocks. I had a picture here somewhere. And what I mean by that is I feel like 10 years ago, everybody, there was no real social media pushing stocks 10 years ago. So people were very diversified, investing into all these different companies. Now I feel like there's more money chasing fewer stocks because fewer stocks are really the ones that are being talked about on social media. And I think that is enhancing the returns of those stocks. And then people like to invest in things that are going up. They don't like investing in things that are sideways or down. So you get more money flowing into those. So you really have like a highlighter of sexy stocks. And then everything else could fundamentally look cheap, but it just doesn't move. So you gotta, and this is the hard part, you kind of gotta find stocks that have really good fundamentals if you're gonna buy and hodl them, and are sexy. That's tough.
Yeah. And that one of the most interesting things for me is I've had like that front row seat to the insanity of social media. And when whatever it is, virality for whatever reason decides to support stock XYZ, we see this right now actively, AMC, GameStop. I mean, the social media between Twitter, Reddit, everything, YouTube, like the videos that talk about it, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I would pay any amount of money to have some sort of microphone in a classic hedge fund thing, because what could be going on there? Like, they have to be losing their mind. And you even see it a little bit in mainstream media. They're like, yeah, no, they're buying the stock. Like, that's the roaring kitty thing. I just like the stock. And that's what they do. And they buy more and they buy more and they buy more. And I feel like these fundamental models of what they used to base things on, they're just ripping them up, because I get it. I get why a lot of fundamental breakdowns told people they should short these stocks. Like, they're like, hey, no, like whether it's the pandemic, they're not going to have revenue, they're going to short. That's what their models told them. And they never, ever accounted for the social aspect of people are like, nah, we don't want you to short that. And then they go absolutely hog wild with it. And it's led to, honestly, this conversation right now, because for me, it's what gave me this channel. And I started talking about it. And it's just pure insanity. And it's one of those things, I always think of the Game of Thrones quote of just that I think his name is Littlefinger, of just like the rungs up in chaos. You have so many people, and you see it on Reddit, especially Wall Street bets, the amount of money people take on these YOLO bets that any fundamental investor would be ripping their hair out. Someone's like, yeah, I made a couple million off 10,000. You're like, what is going on right now? And as it spreads more and the digital community gets bigger and bigger, I don't think this slows down. I don't think this type of, I guess, mantra of just people making social decisions more than the fundamental, I think it comes in. And that's the unique thing. When you have social and fundamental, those are the power plays. Like, those are definitely the power plays.
Yeah, I mean, look at Rivian, just for an example. It's like you get this insane run up. And so you can create a fundamental value, which I think is maybe $60 or something like that. And anything above that is like social or gotta have it, right? You get these crazy momentum move ups or run ups where the thing runs to like $180, and people are posting these 1 week call option returns where it's like, I'm up 2,000, 3,000%, right? And those are getting these crazy highlights. There are opportunities where if you're early enough and you buy short-term calls on them, totally, you can make a killing. You also make a killing on the back end. Once you crest, you know what happens to momentum. Mm-hmm. You just buy some puts and watch it go down. They all go down. Mm-hmm. And so it's, unfortunately, I think one of the risk factors is trading requires timing the market really twice. It's timing the market getting in and timing getting out. And if you're not really paying attention and you're getting into momentum movers, you could get killed very quickly. But it's a fun game to play, and there's money to be made there. So it's fascinating. And hey, if I encourage it for a small portion of people's portfolio, real estate, long tech, and then have some fun too. But I generally say keep that on the smaller side.
And that's fair, because like you said, it is so volatile. But going off of that, I'm just curious about your own psychology. To my understanding off your social media, you made a very good trade on Rivian lately. You saw the momentum start to die out. You knew that the IPO, the cart got in front of the horse, and you took a nice put play. I believe you were in it a couple days, a handful of days, not even. And the money you made on it, I'm assuming is probably more than the appreciation of some of your properties over a couple of years. How do you balance that out in your mind of like, I made this money in a couple trading days opposed to, and I get it, it's the risk reward setup. Real estate, it seems to be less risk and you're not going to get a huge multi-1,000% gain in a couple of days. Is that why you like to get that diversity in there? You're like, a couple of these plays, is that your whole thing of like, I want the entire spectrum of risk and reward? Is that how you kind of balance it out?
Well, I mean, I can't say I want the whole spectrum because I don't want bonds. Look, if you look at my portfolio, it's tech and it's real estate. So even though I think that's diversified, I'm not diversified in stocks. When you just look at my stock portfolio, it's like 40% Tesla, right? It's not very diversified at all. So I would say, well, first of all, I never compare real estate to stocks because it probably make me very sad about having to drive to properties multiple times or, whatever. And like, let's put the $20 light fixture in instead of the $29 light fixture. And you're right, here it is, in like 48 hours, here's a $250,000 investment that made whatever, it was $120,000 or something like that. It's like, I'll take profits on that really quickly. That's amazing. Like, you're right. $120,000, like it would take me 6 months of hell to make that and to flip it in real estate. And I don't even know if you could make 120 grand on a flip unless you were doing some like $3 million property and you scored big, but then you'd spend 2 years on it, yeah. So I can't think that way. But the way I look at my real estate is I kind of just want to buy as much as I can. And the reason for that is I don't care about the cash flow because cash flow is taxed heavily. So are short-term trades. They're taxed heavily. Don't really care. What I care about is that total value of real estate. And over time, knowing that real estate appreciates and historically has a little bit above what inflation is. And then I do that with what I consider very safe leverage. I've got 58% debt on my properties. And so I get a nice leverage return. I can never be margin called on those. The rents pay for the debt. The properties are piggy banks for me. So when the market crashes, like it did in March of 2020, I went to, at the time, the 8 properties I had, I broke the piggy bank. I took $2 million out by refinancing. I refinanced starting on March 3rd. I refinanced because the Fed was panicking. I'm like, rates just went to zero. Refinance everything. Took $2 million at the end of March, threw it literally all into the stock market, and that exploded. I mean, that was the best time to do that. So my real estate really became this like opportunity treasure chest that I could just go to and break the piggy bank, so to speak, by taking debt out. And that's not taxable either when you take debt out, which is wonderful. But really the big value that I see in it too is, so I've got about $24 million or whatever in real estate, and maybe 13 or whatever of that is debt. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, whatever. And so the way I look at it is $24 million. If the market appreciates just 3% above inflation, that's $720,000 of real wealth that I've created above inflation, doing nothing. $720,000. That's nuts. I mean, even if it was just 1% above inflation, that's 240 grand a year of wealth. That's just, going into this pot basically. Mm-hmm. And it's easy. It's simple. I know the formula. I know how to do it. I love it. And it makes me feel like maybe it's just a way of justifying why I'm so heavy in tech. I don't know. Maybe that's my psychological justification, but I couldn't be 100% all in tech because I'd probably lose my mind. When the market was crashing in March or even May of 2021, Tesla's going down 40% like in 2 weeks. That's stressful. You look at your real estate and you look at the real estate prices like, well, they went up 0.1% this week.
A little bit easier. So, well, even in those swings and generating immense wealth, so my social media stalking of you, to my understanding, you basically have a 6-figure investment right now in AMC. Can you tell us a little bit of thoughts of really what's going on, of like what got you interested in it, like the insanity of the social group behind it, and just right now, obviously you've still been hodling it. So why are you still hodling it?
Well, I promised I would. I did promise I would also, let's see, here's what I've done. Here, I'll just pull it up really quick. So here's what I got. AMC, I'm down 13%. So I'm a little under 6 figures right now at 2,100 shares. And I do have 2 sold puts on it. So I'm actually willing to buy more if it sells below that. That's 39 and 40. I also got those when volatility was super, super high. So I think that's why one's up, $8 grand and the other one's up $6 grand or whatever. So I think it's, I want to be part of the movement because I support, especially after the election, my failed election, I support this move for transparency. And I think the more attention we bring to what happened with GME and Robinhood and AMC, the more people like Gary Gensler pay attention to us. Mm-hmm. That whole SEC report, whether we think parts of it are BS or not, doesn't matter so much. What matters is they're talking about us. So I think Floyd Mayweather said it, and he said it well. He said to all the media in front of him, he goes, I don't care if you say good things or bad things about me, as long as you're talking about me. And I think it's the same of AMC. I don't care if you don't like the valuation of AMC. I support the movement. And I think it's wonderful. So, that to me is why I'm in it. I love going to AMC and purposefully overspending on it. Like I'll just purposely buy extra. Like I feel like when I was a kid, I'd sneak in candy or alcohol or whatever. Now I'm like, I'll take a Mai Tai, and you look at the receipt and it's $40 for a Mai Tai, and you're like, but I'm a stock owner.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I want to take one quick second because I don't want you to get attacked. They're going to see that you have AMC puts. Folks, just so you know, he sold them. So that means if it goes in the money, he'll gain more stock. I don't want you to think in any way he's betting against it. Please just look into the fact that he sold puts. It's very different than buying puts. We need to get that on record because I think there's some people who might be a little new to options that are like, whoa, what's going on here?
You see the word put. Yeah, exactly. So basically, if AMC falls below $39 or below $40 by January of 2022, and 2023, I will be forced to buy an additional 2,000 shares in each of those Januaries. So that's the commitment I've made to actually double or triple my portfolio and exposure to AMC.
Right. Yeah, we definitely need to get that clarification out there. So in the market right now, just rewinding a little bit to our earlier conversation, are you seeing a dip looming in the next, I don't know, let's say 1, 2, 3 months? Like, are your concerns of inflation that serious that the party might be over pretty soon? Or what are you seeing in like what you would define as your short to almost medium term?
I definitely see very frothy valuations. I think we ran very, very quickly in the last month to where I paid off all my margin. And now I am about 8.8% cash, I think, as of today. Usually I want to be fully invested. Now, there are also some other things I might want to put cash into, whether that's, maybe buying an apartment building or whatever by the end of the year to save some money in taxes or whatever. But at the same time, I've got that cash there. So if there's a big dip in the market, then screw the property. I'll just go buy the big dip. Like I'd love to buy NVIDIA, but I'm not going to buy it at $320. Yeah. Is it going to go to $400 one day? Of course. Am I maybe going to miss the boat? Fine. But we're just in this market right now where it's so euphoric. I just can't feel good about adding to it right now. So I've actually been going through. I've gotten out of some trades like InsurTech. I'm almost completely out of InsurTech. I've taken some profits on some things, some small losses on some things, just to build cash so that if we have a dip, I'll buy the opportunity. If we don't have a dip, whatever. That means 92% of my portfolio is going to the moon. How can I be upset with that?
I'm just cracking up because I'm honestly picturing Nancy Pelosi just watching this interview and she's like, all right, NVIDIA to 400. Let me get some call options on that one. She's like, all right, send this off. Yeah. Speaking of Pelosi and politicians and your little, I guess, connection to politics now, one of the biggest things of the apes is trying to get change. So like really trying to get some of these legitimate issues in the market, the extreme amount of off-exchange trading, the poor reporting for fails to deliver, the fact that shorts aren't reported, pattern day trading, a lot of things where we're pitched the fact that it's a free market. And then you start playing in the game and you're like, well, hang on, it seems like not everyone's traded free. In your own assumption, what's actually the best way to get the attention of someone like Gary Gensler, SEC, other politicians? I try to reach out. I'm in Pennsylvania. I try to reach out to the senator, Senate Finance Committee, Pat Toomey. He happens to be here in PA, and I just got the lip service. He's like, oh, yeah, thanks for reaching out. If you have more, like, reach out again. It's just the automated email where they just put my, like, name in it. And that's, I think, the frustration of a lot of people's. We're told politicians work for us. They're supposed to be working for the betterment of society, culture, and the country. But yet they just don't listen to us. So do you have any, I guess, at least personal opinions on like, okay, we're loud and obviously we get hashtags going. We're a force on various forms of social media. But is there like more of a professional adult way to like the channels to go through to like say, hey, we actually want change for like X, Y, and Z?
Very, very hard. I'm going to answer two questions here. So one is the opinion part. My opinion is that we should have instantaneous disclosure with politicians. There shouldn't be a 45-day delay, right? This should be instant. That should be the number one thing that happens, and that should be very obvious and simple to do. Personally, like, let them trade. Just make them disclose it instantly. Right? The second thing is I think the best way to usher in change is, it's a hard way, but I think it's the best way, is the free market creating a brokerage that provides these additional levels of transparency, and then the community using that service by voting with what the service they want. And then all of a sudden the other brokers have to adapt. And then it trickles up to the regulators. That's my belief. It's so difficult to get Congress to do anything. I hate the government. So I actually have more faith in the free market's ability to solve that, and then consumers' ability to vote for that. So I would say support brokers which honestly, so many brokerages just suck right now. Support the ones that you believe the most in. Like, for example, Public, just as an example, they publicly say they don't do payment for order flow. Hey, maybe open a Public account and put even just a portion of your portfolio in there just to be part of that voting mechanism. But hopefully there'll be another in the future that's even more transparent. That, every day, like Kathy Wood discloses her trades for ARK Invest every day, usually at like 5 p.m. California time. All right. Every day, the broker's like, here are the shorts at our brokerage today. Here's this that happened today. Here's whatever, right? Like, that's kind of what we need. So I think we need brokerages to really step up their games. It's hard for us, I feel like, as a community to do that, other than what we've already done with GameStop. GameStop, that was incredible. That was really the first time people in media ever even cared about transparency. I feel like in finance. So the GameStop situation was the best we could have asked for.
Yeah. That 45-day thing, I was just reading about it. What's really insidious about it is, yes, they have up to 45 days. Many politicians run past it, but then the website it goes on has 45 days to post it. So there's a chance, even within rules, it could be 90 days, 3 months later. And I'm reading this, and then you read about how many of them default on it anyway. They're over 45 days. And it's a crazy mechanism because the people who are the watchdogs, the SEC, their checks are signed by the government. So what, are we expecting them to bite the hand that feeds them? Like, literally their funding comes from the people that they're supposed to enforce. I just don't get it. The other thing I don't get is, I've been following Kathy Wood for quite a while, and I've seen that she's been loading up on Robinhood, and I just don't get it. Do I have a vendetta on Robinhood? Yes. But even if we look at the business, so much of its revenue comes from payment for order flow. The SEC, Gary Gensler, is currently looking at that. If they don't, the first quarter of this year, they got by on the quarter because of the insanity in GameStop, specifically options trading. The next quarter, it was Doge because everyone was going crazy with Doge. That's where it's got its money. Fast forward to the third quarter, the most recent one. Well, without a crazy event with that, many people in exodus from Robinhood, it burned $1.3 billion. The public hates it. So when you don't have the social support, and also you have a failing business model that actually might even be outlawed, it just hit an all-time low. I just don't get it. Is there, maybe I'm a little bit too close to this one, but what do you think she's even seeing that she's like, oh, I should probably buy this one?
I think the odds, and I think she thinks this as well, I think the odds of payment for order flow, ironically, going away are very low. We can talk more about what we believe about in that, but I don't think the SEC is going to be able to pull off any change there. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and say something like, you know what, we looked into payment for order flow, there's nothing we're going to do about it. I wouldn't be surprised if they do literally nothing about it, which is also no surprise because that's government for you. So I think there's a part where Kathy sees this as maybe a dip opportunity where it's like, hey, it's sold off because of GME. It's sold off because of the payment for order flow drama and potential banning with the SEC. But once the GME thing passes, and once the payment for order flow thing passes, it'll go back up to the moon. I believe that's what is potentially is what she's thinking. Fundamentally, the valuation isn't horrible at $30 to $40. I think $70 was ridiculous. It was way too high for the amount of customers they have and the revenue they do make even outside of an event, especially once they systematize their processes a little bit, they get their customer service ironed out. I think they could be an okay play. I don't think it's the best play. I'm not buying the dip on Robinhood. But that's probably what she's looking at. But you can't know for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even going off of what you just said, for example, Public, they are happy that they don't do payment for order flow. So even if it's not necessarily banned from a regulatory standpoint, like you said, more of the free market, they're like, fine, if you want to keep it legal, keep it legal. But if you see that mass exodus and people surrounding brokerages that are doing it, the free market might actually solve the problem before it gets legislated. And honestly, Congress, it's so slow and so messed up anyway. Maybe that is honestly the best option. Not in terms of markets or anything like that. I guess in a weird way, social media markets. But a final question for you. What are your thoughts on YouTube getting rid of the dislike button?
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning quickly that it's also possible that us, and especially on here on YouTube on our communities, that we might have a little bit more exposure to people disliking payment for order flow than other folks. That's also a possibility that the mass public doesn't even know what that is or care. And second, it's also possible Kathy Wood likes Robinhood because what else are you going to buy? That's a fintech brokerage. M1 Finance, not public. Webull, not public. Public's not public. Yeah. So maybe that has an element to do with it as well. It's your choice right now, with the exception of like Interactive Broker or TD. But these don't have the potential fintechy sex appeal, right? Because they're more the old guard. Okay, now the dislike button. It's weird, Marquez, MKBHD, he did a really, really good breakdown on how he uses the dislike button as his sort of first gauge when he clicks on a video, like how to change an outlet. You click on a video, 80% dislike. Oh, this is going to waste my time. It's like a really good way to judge, is this video going to be good or bad? I agree with him. I do the same thing. I like being able to see that when I look at videos, seeing the dislike ratio. I see what YouTube's saying on one hand, that the dislike ratio hurts the psychology of creators. But if you could still see it on the back end, which they're saying you can, it makes no difference. The creators are just going to see it on the back end, what the dislike ratio is. So I don't really understand that. Like, for example, I'm looking right now, the video I just posted about the stimulus package, 97.1% up, Apple, 97.5 up. Well, I don't know. Where's a bad one I did? I don't know. Here's a 93%. Oh, did Bitcoin just end into Ethereum? Some people don't like the question title or whatever, right? It's like, no, it didn't, whatever, which was my conclusion as well, right? But they read the titles, dislike. And so I'm like, 93.5%, people didn't like that one as much, right? Sure, I get that. But like, if they're still going to give me the data, what different? You're just robbing the public from that. I don't really support it. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's exactly it. So their argument is to protect, they said protect smaller creators, but I didn't get what the protection is when they still see it. So to me, it was one of these things is like, we'll say this because it sounds good. Like, yeah, we're protecting you. But in reality, it seems like they're protecting very large brands. I've read some stats that the people who get most commonly ratioed are big media and our government. So it's crazy.
Dude, Joe Biden, every White House video is like 95% dislikes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh, you're right. This could all just circle back to the beginning of our video, that this is the government going, hey, come on, this is making us look bad. The United Nations is coming up to us going, why does everyone dislike your videos?
Probably. Yeah, it's between the White House, the president, and then all the major news outlets, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all of those most commonly are getting ratioed. It's not actually individual people, because people who watch individual brands, they like those people. That's why they're watching those people. But when it comes into large brands and government, and I'm like, but that's crazy. Isn't that so unsettling that might actually even be it? That like, seriously,
I think you nailed it, man.
Like, that's so wild.
Dude, you should make a video. And if you don't, maybe I'll have to. I'll probably forget. But the real reason, the truth, the dislike button was removed. Censorship.
I like it. overall, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, do you want to shout out your socials if people want to connect with you, see what's going on, just so everyone knows? I'll put them all in the link in the description of the video, all that stuff. But if you just want to shout out your IG, Twitter, channel, all that good stuff.
Totally. Meet Kevin on YouTube and Instagram, and Real Meet Kevin on Twitter and TikTok.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we can talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.